Welcome to the Atlanta Hawks podcast presented by thewinningtake.com. I'm your host, Jack Hunter, alongside Will Ben. Will, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Not a good offseason for the Hawks, but there's still a lot of time left, which is the good thing. Let's first start off with Tim Hardaway Jr. Offered a 4-year, $71 million offer sheet last night by the New York Knicks. The Hawks have around 24 hours to match that. Will, should they match it or should they let him walk?
I think that they have to let him walk. I mean, I would love to have Hardaway Jr. back on the team, but not at that expense. The Hawks are already fairly deep at the wing position with Prince, Benbury, and Bazemore, and I just don't think he's worth $71 million. He is in that one contract. He has already made more than his father did, Tim Hardaway Sr., and his father made 5 All-Star games. Tim Hardaway has had one breakout year in Atlanta, and you cannot forget that the year before that, he was in the D League for the beginning of the year. So Hardaway, I really liked him last year. He really improved on his shot and on the defensive side of the ball, but I do not think he is worth $71 million.
Yeah, I was reading something on a 538 that said his contract was going to be projected around $35 million over 4 years for what he's worth. That's double. And I don't think 538 is necessarily maybe a reliable source, but that does give you a good of a ballpark estimate of what he's worth, and that is $71 million. I thought you could build around Hardaway Jr., but if you look at Coach Bud, what he's really good at is developing wings. You've got Kent Bazemore, you've got DeMarre Carroll, and now you've got Tim Hardaway Jr. I think you let him walk. I mean, $19 million a year. The Hawks can find someone. They can develop him to be almost as good. And you got to remember too, Tim Hardaway Jr. isn't necessarily the best two-way guard too.
No, I mean, Bazemore had a down year last year, but he's making the exact same money as Hardaway. So I don't think there's any need to play your starting shooting guard and your backup shooting guard the same amount of money. They both 4 years, $70 million about. So I don't see the point of doing that, first of all. And we also got, like you said, we have DeAndre Bentley and Torian Prince, our 2 first-round picks from last year's draft. So I think that if we just develop just one of them, Torian Prince, he averaged 11 points in the playoffs last year, played some solid defense on Otto Porter. And, I mean, I think that the Hawks will be fine without Hardaway Jr. I would love to have him back, but he's not indispensable.
And the point is for keeping him is the salary cap raises every year. So this might be a bad short-term thing, but in the long term, you look at Dennis Schroeder's deal. I mean, he's getting what, 15, 16 a year. That seemed a little much at first, especially when he's barely starting any games. But as the years go on and as the games he plays go on, he's getting better and the cap space is rising. So it's good contract now. And I bet in 2 years when Schroeder is almost at the last of his contract, it's going to be an amazing deal. So that's the Ford signing Tim Hardaway Jr., but everyone thinks it's ridiculous, and I do too. I mean, you've got a lot of wing depth. That's something you do have. Why not let Tim Hardaway Jr. walk and go after a front court player that can be with you for the long term?
Yeah, and some other guys, who's other places, it's on ESPN, guys who last offseason signed similar contracts to Hardaway this year. Alan Craft, 4 years, $75 million. Bismack Biyombo, 4 years, $72 million. Luol Deng, 4 years, $72 million. Joakim Noah, 4 years, 72. I mean, I just don't think he had one breakout year, and that breakout year was only 14 and a half points. I mean, that's very solid, but not worth $71 million.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then if you look at it too, if the Knicks get him, the Knicks are going to be so restricted in terms of cap space. They've got Joakim Noah. And then, I mean, honestly, like, I want the best for Tim Hardaway Jr., but in my opinion, he makes the Knicks worse because they've already got Courtney Lee there, and they've got Joakim Noah there. They've got a point guard. The starting point guard right now is a European dude who's 19 years old, and I don't see how Hardaway Jr. makes the Knicks better. And the Knicks are already like the worst defensive team in the NBA, and Hardaway Jr. is not going to help that.
Right. So, Jeff, what do you think about the Otto Porter situation? He got offered a $106 million 4-year deal from Brooklyn. Washington still has a chance to match it. What do you think they should do there?
I mean, I don't see how Washington should match it. It's a different thing if you're the Cavaliers and you go to the luxury tax every year and you're competing for a title every year. The Wizards are in a different place. The Wizards are in win now mode, and Otto Porter is 24 years old and averaged 13 points a game last year. I can understand a team like Brooklyn wanting to sign him because they can build around him. But for the Wizards, yeah, you look long term, maybe Porter's a nice piece, but there's no guarantee in 4 years when he hits his prime whether he's going to re-sign with Washington. Because in 4 years, if Washington's not going anywhere, Bradley Beal could be gone, and so could John Wall, too. So, another thing, too. Why pay $26 million to a third wing player, like a third option scorer, on a mediocre Eastern Conference playoff team? I understand that people say you can't let him walk for nothing, but the one question that I've been asking myself is, will Otto Porter help the Wizards win a ring? No. They might not have good short-term options because, they don't have any cap space to sign anyone anyway. But you might look 3 years from now, Otto Porter's still a bad contract. You finally have cap space for a start, and you can't sign him because you're thinking about the short term.
And when Otto Porter, I agree 100% with you. When Otto Porter is your third scoring option, your third best player, and you're paying 3 guys to a max contract, you have no chance to win the East when he's scoring 13.5 points a game in a career year. Yes, he's young, but he's been in the league for 4 years. And there's not a lot of players who have broken out in their 5th year. Ballmer broke out in his 4th year. So, I guess a lot of people turn to him as a late riser. But, Porter, I don't see, even if he raises points per game by 7 points, I highly doubt it's going to happen. But if it is, because he's at 20 points a game, then I still don't see the Wizards being able to defeat the Cavs or the Celtics in the next 2 to 3 years with Porter. And I think they need to gamble on a superstar. Maybe the one guy who they have a semi-decent chance of getting is DeMarcus Cousins, if that whole situation does not work out in New Orleans. Wall and Cousins, of course, went to stay in college, played under Colin Harry, and I think maybe if they reunited, a pairing of Wall, Beal, and Cousins would be a pretty good trio and a much better way to spend money if you're the Wizards.
Two important things to point out. One, Brooklyn's deal includes a 15% trade kicker. So all the people saying they should do is try and sign and trade. That takes this contract from 26 a year to 30 a year. Now, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, that's worse. All right. Another thing you have to understand too is there's a difference between being logical and being realistic. All right. So it might seem logical to sign Otto Porter to a huge deal, then wait till the trade deadline, see where the team's going, and then trade him. But you don't see that happening. You don't see guys that are 24 years old getting signed to a mega deal and then 6 months later getting shipped out to a bad team. Like, that seems logical on the Wizards' part, but it's just not realistic.
Right, and Porter, if they were to ship him off somewhere, he has a 1-year no-trade clause. So he can veto any trade in the next year if the Wizards do indeed match. So now we go over probably the best free agent still available now is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope out of the University of Georgia. Caldwell-Pope has 3 straight seasons scoring double figures. Last year had a career high in assists, and he had started 75 games or more in 3 straight years. And candidates to get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are the Hawks, the Nets, and the Lakers. So, Jack, how do you see that situation? Should the Hawks go throw some money at him or hold off and wait for next year, or just trust the process, trust Travis Slank, and just go from there?
Honestly, I see the Lakers getting him because Caldwell-Pope had a down year last year. He rejected a $16 million a year offer from the Pistons. So what I'm thinking he's going to try to do is he's going to try to go out there next year and he's going to try to prove himself. Now, the 2 best ways he can do that is A, play next to a point guard that fits his style. I think Lonzo Ball really makes other players better, and I think he can make Kentavious Caldwell-Pope better. He's going to drive in the lane, leave him open for penetration, and he runs on the break too. So I think Lonzo Ball can make him better, and the Lakers are reportedly going to give him like a 1-year balloon contract. So A, you make a lot of money short term, and you get a year to prove yourself. And LA is a perfect place to prove yourself too. There's plenty of media there. So, and then I think next year he's going to try to go off for the max. That's what I'm thinking he's going to do.
Right, not a bad idea for Caldwell-Pope. He is now an unrestricted free agent because the Pistons renounced his rights after they acquired Avery Bradley earlier. And another guy still on the market is Spur Jonathan Simmons. So we saw him play a lot in the playoffs once Kawhi went down last year. He only averaged 6 points a game, but that was in limited minutes, 17 minutes off the bench. He was much better in the playoffs, and his per 36 minutes career stat, 13 points a game, and a solid player in his first year for the first team. He is the guy who I want to see the Hawks go after.
Yeah, I think there's really three guys that remaining for the Hawks that I want to see them. I obviously think Jonathan Simmons is a great piece. I don't think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a realistic piece right now. I mean, he's looking for Tim Hardaway Jr. money, and if the Hawks pass up on Tim Hardaway Jr., there's no way they're going to give Kentavious Caldwell-Pope Tim Hardaway Jr. money. I think you don't pass up on a guy that's been in your system for 3 years, and then you go get someone that needs to learn your system and that average less points than Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, they're like the same player practically, but you don't just let one walk so you can bring the new guy in. That just doesn't click with me. But I think Jonathan Simmons is a guy that could be a lot cheaper. I mean, I think you're looking at around 10 to 12, maybe $13 million deal. And the Hawks definitely have the cap space for that right now before they even get rid of Tim Hardaway Jr.'s qualifying offer if he signs elsewhere and all of that complicated cap stuff. So, yeah, I like Jonathan Simmons. Like, obviously, he comes from the Spurs, so it's a great system fit. And I think, and two other guys, Nerlens Noel is a guy, too, that I don't think the Hawks are going to give him money, but he's a perfect long-term center. He's young, he's athletic, he can play defense, he can finish around the basket. He's like a Dwight, but way more mobile and a way more of a shot blocker around the basket. He was the guy that I think Coach Bud was kind of hoping to get last year instead of 32-year-old Dwight Howard. He was the form of the guy. I don't think we're going to throw money at him, but honestly, I think he'd be a great long-term fit. Another guy, too, restricted free agent, Mason Plumlee. He's a great system fit in my opinion. I don't want to compare him to Paul Millsap or anything because they're different players, but he's got the IQ and he's got the passing ability that I saw from Millsap too. So I think he could come in. He's also a long-term fit. He's really young too, and I don't think he's going to demand for that much money in the offseason. So those are the three guys I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think Noel, he's probably my favorite out of him and Plumlee, but Noel is a restricted free agent, so it'd be hard to pull him away from a young rebuilding Mavericks team. But here's one thing to watch out with the Hawks. We have a lot of assets. We have 3 first-round picks for next year. We have our original first-round pick, the Rockets first-round pick that we got in the 3-way Millsap signing trade, and we have the Timberwolves first-round picks, which we got for former Hawks draft pick Adrian Payne for next year. So 3 picks in the first round next year. We can maybe flip one of those for a player for 2 guards to fill in for Hardaway. So a lot of assets. And now let's go over to the Summer League. Hawks kick off the Summer League tonight. And Jack, who are some players that you are going to watch for tonight?
I really want to watch Isaiah Cordinier, a second-round pick last year. I think he's got a shot to make the roster this year. I liked what I saw out of him in Summer League last year, and I feel like if he puts another good Summer League performance, especially if Tim Hardaway Jr. leaves, and really here's why. The Hawks are loaded at backcourt in the backcourt/small forward position right now, but you've got guys like Jamal Crawford and Kent Bazemore that the future of them are unknown. And you know Travis Schlenk loves cap flexibility, so I would not be surprised if both of those guys are gone by the start of the season. So then that leaves a wing position open. You've got Bembry, you've got Taurean Prince at small forward, and I think at shooting guard, Isaiah Cordinier, he's your 3-and-D guy. He's a very good three-point shooter. He's young and he's athletic. And even if he doesn't play that much, they've got a D-League team now, so they can certainly use him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't going back overseas this year. Another guy that I want to watch too is John Collins, the first-round pick this year. He's got a lot of potential. The 2 things that I want to see him work on is filling out his frame. And it's going to take a while because it's not just that easy to get bulky all of a sudden. But, I want to see the process of it, how he's done since he's gotten drafted, from his college season, and how his ability to stretch the floor, because that's another thing that he's going to need to work on, see if he has a little mid-range jumper in him as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot of young players to be excited about for the Hawks playing the Nets today. And some other guys, other than Collins and Cordinier and Bembry and Prince, the obvious guys are last couple draft picks. Also, Kava, 6'10" forward, who was the 60th pick of the draft, and he's on one that was for Diamond Stone, who we acquired in the the Clippers. And this is his second year. He was the 40th pick of last year's draft, the 2016 NBA draft. 6'11", 265 out of Maryland. Did not play that much at all last year, but played in the G League quite a bit. So maybe if he can make the play as a backup center, backup big man, maybe he can be a solid roster spot once the NBA season comes back around.
Yeah, I really like Diamond Stone. I don't remember if you remember this last year, but like I used to watch him a little bit at Maryland, and I really liked him. And then the Hawks had like the 17th pick last year, and I wanted the Hawks to pick him. I mean, I like what I see from him. He's a shot blocker. He's very mobile around the basket. He knows basketball, and he's got a good mid-range shot too. I think his ceiling might be a solid starting center. I think he more projects as a good backup center. But really, if we look down at free agency, the Hawks aren't in that bad of a position. Like, I think the Hawks are getting a lot of hate for rebuilding. You know, everyone's like, we're so mediocre for so long, and then we start rebuilding, and everyone starts to freak out. But we do have a lot of good assets. You know, Dennis Schroeder is developing every year. He's on a great contract. As it seems, Taurean Prince, DeAndre Bembry, John Collins. You now got Diamond Stone. I mean, they've got a good core, and then you've got 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years too. So I think this is kind of like a more, instead of Golden State, more of like a Boston strategy right here. But let's hope maybe with 3 first-round picks. I was maybe hoping the Hawks could trade for Avery Bradley, but if Jay Crowder doesn't go through on the sign and trade, or Marcus Smart, if the Celtics still need to trade some cap, I would take either one of those two. Crowder's on a great contract, and Marcus Smart is a restricted free agent. So both of those guys could be kept long term, and they both are kind of good system fits for the Hawks too.
Right. Two more guys I'm looking at in the summer league, because the Hawks, of course, currently going to the Cavaliers. But these are only 2 point guards we have on the roster right now who were on the team last year, Schroeder and Delaney. Neither of them, or Delaney was kind of off and on throughout the year. And Bryce Cotton, who is one of the last roster cuts from the Hawks last year, and our second round pick, Kevin Dorsey out of Oregon, has a really solid jump shot, 6'5", 183. So if one of them could emerge as either the backup or third point guard to challenge Delaney, that'd be awesome.
I think another guy you're forgetting too is Josh Majette, a guy that also signed a summer league contract with the Hawks. He was the actual last cut last year from the Hawks training camp. He's a guy that is a very skilled passer. I'm not really sure what else he brings to the table. I know he's developed his jump shot a little more, but you know, being able to pass in this system will get you a long way, and being able to shoot also. You know, with Bud's player development, you get a guy that has natural basketball IQ, knows the game, feels the game. He'll turn him into a great player. So you've got really like 3 or 4 point guard options. And personally, I don't really think Malcolm Delaney is a long-term answer. I don't think he's going to be a Hawk for much longer. So it's important that maybe we see Tyler Dorsey step up. You know, Bryce Cotton played really well last year, or Josh Majette.
Yeah, and then looking over the Hawks' potential starting lineup for next year, of course, be Schroeder at the point guard. The 2, if we don't reach 100, will most likely be Bazemore at power forward. Maybe Taurean Prince if he continues to improve. I really like watching him play in the last half of the year when he started to get started in a lot more minutes. And the 2 big man positions are a huge question mark. Jack, who do you see potentially starting at the 4 and 5?
I think the Hawks are gonna go out and get a center for sure, because you can't start in the NBA. It's just you can't start a guy like Miles Plumlee. You can't start Mike Muscala. That's the whole new level of tanking. Like I'm feeling like the Hawks are gonna try to stay competitive a little bit, because the East is not as good, and you obviously say it right now, like, yo, we want to be in the lottery because we want a really good pick, but when it comes down to it, you just don't like seeing your team lose 60 games a year. So I think we're going to look at a short-term option, like a veteran at center, or we might sign one of those restricted free agent guys. You never know. Travis has been really unpredictable about what he's going to try to do this summer. They've been keeping it low. Not many stories to report out of the Hawks in. But I want to see John Collins come off the bench next year, because I do think he's got a lot to learn. But I like how Sacramento's doing it. You got two veterans like Vince Carter and Zach Randolph who are gonna be able to develop and help mentor a guy like Harry Giles and Willie Cauley-Stein and Scal Labissiere. I mean, you can build a team of all young players. You look at it in Philadelphia, but if you don't have any veterans, you're not gonna be any good, and those rookies are gonna take years to develop. So I look for some more veterans in the front court. I'm not sure exactly who's still out there, but don't be surprised if there's some veteran minimum deals here and there. Maybe like another Elton Brand type guy from 2014.
Yeah, I think a guy we can expect at the four. I'm betting that Collins is going to go. Is Ilya Silva? We traded for him to have a splitter, I believe, for Ilya Silva last year, and I think that he showed a nice jump shot, average defense, good at drawing charge, but not much else. I think like he came at the 4 and the 5 if anybody's guess. I did really not want to see him solid there. Whenever he would play, if Howard either got the night off or was injured last year, we got out rebounded so badly. So I did not want to see Muscala. I want to see if Northern Noel, if we could somehow get him to Atlanta, that would be incredible. But just a rim protector, rebounder that we can sign in the latter half free agency would be awesome.
Yeah, if you look at Nerlens Noel too, pretty much the Hawks would have to make the deal so big and have put in so much stuff in it that it's like against Travis Schlank's morals, like personal morals, to give someone a long-term deal that includes a big trade kicker, no trade clauses here and there, like you gotta pay half the salary up front. Like, if you look at a restricted free agent market, if you look at Otto Porter and Tim Hardaway Jr., the two things that the teams have been trying to do, like the Nets are really making it tough on the Wizards. Like, you've got the trade kicker, you've got the no trade clause for the first year. I mean, you have to pay half the salary on October 1st. Like, they're making it really tough for the Wizards, and it's really going to be the Wizards' loss if they match Otto Porter. And it's going to be the same way with the Hawks and the Knicks. So, really, the Hawks would have to make such a lucrative offer. They'd have to put a whole bunch of stuff in it that's just against Travis Schlenk's like personal wills and morals. So, I think Nerlens Noel's a nice piece, but I just don't think... I think he fits perfectly and fits the timeline. I just don't think that's what Travis Schlenk's up to.
Right, and it says, reported 2 days ago by Alex Kennedy, the Hawks have shown interest in Nerlens Noel. Of course, he is a restricted free agent, but not anything. And I think that if we could get him, it would be, I would just say, it would be really good for the Hawks to have a center of the future. Can't do worse than the White did in the playoffs last year. That was atrocious. I don't want to go there. But, revisiting this last thing we'll touch on, that trade that we made earlier this week. And at first we thought that we were getting absolutely nothing for Paul Millsap, but then news broke late one night last week, maybe Wednesday night. Could be wrong. Maybe Tuesday night it was. And when we got Jamal Crawford, Diamond Stone, and a future first-round pick for Paul Millsap. So, John, what did you think about Travis Schlenk pulling that off for Millsap?
I thought it was a good trade in terms of the fact that that we got an extra first-round pick, which is an asset. I mean, you look at Houston's going to be really good next year. So I would honestly try to trade that pick as soon as possible because, if you get at the trade deadline and now Houston's in second place in the Western Conference and they're going to be like a 28th overall pick, that looks a lot less intriguing than, trading a pick with a team that doesn't even have a full roster yet. So I would try to get rid of that pick if you're going to trade it. Like, trade it now. Diamond Stone, I think he's a nice piece, like I mentioned earlier. But really, Jamal Crawford, I think, is great for Travis Schlenk because it's just an excuse not to... It's an excuse not to hit the cap floor. I mean, Jamal Crawford helps you get over the cap floor. I don't think the Hawks were going to plan on doing it without Jamal Crawford. But, I mean, as a Hawks fan, it's kind of irritating because it's like, you acquired Jamal Crawford 5 days ago. He says he's not going to play for the team. And he's not going to play for the team. And yet they've done absolutely nothing. And who knows, maybe the Hawks are just going to buy him out. They're going to take a hard hit. And they're just going to stay over the cap floor, which is frustrating. But I don't know. I think the trade was pretty good for the Hawks. considering the fact that they were just going to get nothing before. But I think they're definitely going to have to get rid of Jamal Crawford's contract sooner rather than later.
You hit it right on. I mean, Jamal Crawford, when I first saw it, really excited about getting him back. Big fan of the year his time in Atlanta. But, of course, all signs point to him getting bought out. But, I mean, we did get Diamond Stone, who I still don't know much about him, but other than the young, big man from Maryland who has star potential. And we got another first-round pick in those Canadian guys. Jack, is there anything else you want to touch on today?
I would like to say also too, the quicker you get rid of Jamal's contract, the more you can make an offer to a guy like Jonathan Simmons or Nerlens Noel. I believe the Hawks are something around 15 million in cap space right now. You're getting rid of Crawford. Let's say you buy him out for $5 million at good scenario. Then you're up there about around $30 million in cap space. And that's looking like the type of deal you would give Nerlens Noel. So, in all honesty, you can't move forward in free agency until you get rid of either Plumlee's contract, Jamal Crawford's contract, or Kent Bazemore's contract.
All right, that should definitely be a priority, either Plumlee or Crawford as soon as possible so we can move forward and make some deals. Not anything else, Jack?
Nope, that'll wrap it up. Thank you for listening to Atlanta Hawks podcast presented by thewinningtake.com. I'm your host, Jack Hunter, alongside Will Benton. We have different guests as we continue these episodes. Thank you for listening. Follow the Hawks on Hawks to Winning Take page on Twitter at HawksTWT and follow the Winning Take on Twitter as well. Thank you for listening and goodbye.